It was a rainy Friday evening in New York City, the kind where the streets glistened under neon lights, reflecting the hurried steps of people trying to escape the downpour. Emma Thompson, a young and ambitious event planner, had just finished a grueling week organizing one of the city's biggest charity galas. She was drenched, her umbrella long forgotten on the subway platform, but she barely noticed. All she could think about was getting home, slipping into her warm apartment, and leaving the world behind for a few hours of peace. But fate had other plans. As she exited the subway, a sleek black limousine pulled up beside her, its tinted windows hiding whoever might be inside. The door opened, and a deep, commanding voice called her name. Emma Thompson. Startled, she turned to see a man step out, tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored black suit, with sharp features and dark eyes that seemed to pierce right through her. He exuded a presence that was both magnetic and terrifying. Emma had seen him in the headlines countless times, Alexander Moretti, the notorious Mafia kingpin whose name alone could make people shiver with fear. Yes, that's me, she stammered, instinctively stepping back. Alexander smiled, but it wasn't warm, it was calculated, a smile that promised power and danger all at once. I need your help for a private event tonight, he said simply, as if discussing the weather. And you're the best I've heard of. Emma's heart pounded. She had organized countless high-profile events, but working for a mafia boss was not something she had ever imagined. Her mind screamed at her to walk away, to run into the safety of her apartment and lock the door, but something, curiosity, intrigue, kept her rooted in place. Why me? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Because, he said, stepping closer, you know how to make impossible things happen. And I like things done my way. Emma hesitated. There was something intoxicating about the confidence he carried, the way he seemed to command the world with just a glance. Against her better judgment, she found herself nodding. Okay, I'll do it. The limousine whisked them through the rain-soaked streets, taking Emma to an exclusive penthouse overlooking the city skyline. The room was lit with soft golden lights, the scent of roses and expensive whiskey lingering in the air. Alexander moved with purpose, directing staff, checking arrangements, but always keeping a watchful eye on her. As the night progressed, Emma found herself drawn into a world she had only seen in movies, luxury, danger, and a subtle undercurrent of something forbidden. Alexander's presence was suffocating yet addictive. He would glance at her, and she would feel heat rush to her cheeks, an awareness she couldn't explain. When the event ended, the city outside was quiet, the rain reduced to a soft drizzle. Alexander approached her, his gaze locking onto hers. You did well tonight, he murmured, his voice low and dangerous. Better than I expected. Emma felt her breath catch. There was something in his tone that made her heart race, not fear, not entirely, but something she couldn't quite name. I should go, she said, though her body resisted the movement. Or, Alexander said, stepping closer, you could stay for a while. Just tonight. No one will know. Emma's mind spun. This was dangerous, reckless, and entirely forbidden. But the pull between them was undeniable. She felt drawn to him in a way that made her rational thoughts scatter. She knew that saying yes could change her life forever, but also that saying no might make her regret it for the rest of her days. For reasons she couldn't fully understand, she nodded. Just for tonight, she whispered. And in that moment, the storm outside seemed to mirror the storm inside her. The night was theirs, a night of secrecy, of desire, and of choices that would shape both of their lives in ways neither could imagine. Little did Emma know, this forbidden night with Alexander Moretti would ignite a chain of events, secrets, and consequences that would ripple through the months to come. What started as a single night of temptation would soon confront them both with questions of trust, love, and betrayal, challenges they were completely unprepared for. As the first light of dawn crept through the penthouse windows, Emma realized she had crossed a line she could never uncross. And Alexander, well, he already knew she was his in ways neither of them fully understood yet. The city outside moved on, oblivious to the choices made behind the closed doors of that luxurious penthouse. But for Emma and Alexander, nothing would ever be the same again. The days following that forbidden night were a whirlwind of emotions for Emma. She tried to immerse herself in work, throwing herself into planning upcoming events, but no matter how hard she focused, Alexander's presence lingered like a shadow she couldn't escape. Every text from an unknown number, every black limousine parked discreetly outside a building, made her heart race. It was as if the city itself whispered his name, reminding her that the night they shared was not just a fleeting mistake, it was the beginning of something far more dangerous. Emma's friends noticed a change in her. She was distant, distracted, and often caught staring at her phone as though waiting for some urgent message. She brushed off their questions with weak smiles, telling them she was just stressed from work. But deep down, she knew it wasn't stress, it was Alexander. His control over her thoughts, her feelings, and even her curiosity, was undeniable. She tried to convince herself that it was impossible to fall for someone like him, someone so ruthless and feared, yet her heart betrayed her, yearning for him in ways she didn't fully understand. Alexander, on the other hand, was nothing if not meticulous. He didn't contact her every day, but when he did, it was precise and commanding. A single message, a single call, and Emma would feel her entire world tilt. One evening, as she left a high-end boutique, her phone buzzed with a message, "Meet me tonight. The place you know. 9 p.m. Her pulse quickened, and despite knowing the risks, she found herself agreeing without hesitation. The location was an upscale, private rooftop lounge overlooking the Hudson River, a place where the elite met in secrecy. Alexander was already there when she arrived, leaning against the railing, the city lights casting a dangerous glow across his sharp features. He didn't smile, didn't greet her with words, his eyes simply held hers, commanding attention and respect, desire and fear all at once. "You came," he said finally, his voice low, resonating in the quiet night. I had to," Emma admitted, feeling her cheeks warm. "You called. I didn't know what to expect, but..." He cut her off with a raised hand, stepping closer so that the space between them seemed to disappear. "You don't have to explain anything," he murmured. "You belong here, with me. And you know it." Emma's heart raced. She wanted to argue, to tell him she couldn't, that this was dangerous, but the words caught in her throat. Being near him was intoxicating, the pull of his presence almost too much to bear. She realized then that this wasn't just desire, it was something deeper, something she hadn't anticipated and couldn't resist. The night unfolded in a blur of stolen moments and whispered secrets. Alexander revealed pieces of himself she hadn't expected, the pressures of his empire, the constant threats, and the loneliness that accompanied power. He spoke of a life where trust was rare and love even rarer. Emma listened, captivated not only by the man before her but by the vulnerability he let slip in fleeting moments. It made her feel honored and dangerous at the same time, to witness a side of him that almost no one else ever saw. But as dawn approached, reality began to creep back in. Emma knew this couldn't last forever. Alexander was a world apart from hers, a man whose life existed in the shadows, ruled by power, fear, and control. Yet as he pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers, she realized that the night had changed something fundamental in both of them. There was no turning back, not for her, and perhaps not for him either. Weeks passed, and the rhythm of their secret encounters became a dangerous routine. They met in hidden corners of the city, in private lounges, in Alexander's luxurious penthouses, always under the veil of secrecy. Emma found herself drawn deeper into his world, learning its rules, its dangers, and its temptations. She knew she should walk away, yet every time she tried, she felt an invisible thread pulling her back toward him. Then, one ordinary afternoon, the unexpected happened. Emma, feeling unusually tired, missed a meeting, and as she rested on her couch, a sudden wave of nausea hit her. She brushed it off at first, attributing it to stress and exhaustion, but the feeling didn't pass. Over the next few days, her symptoms intensified, and a sense of dread mixed with anticipation settled in her chest. Finally, unable to ignore it any longer, she bought a test. The result left her trembling. Positive. Emma was pregnant. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. She had always known the risks of her forbidden relationship with Alexander, but now the consequences were undeniable, irreversible. Her mind raced with questions. How would he react? Would he accept this? Could their dangerous, secretive relationship survive something so real, so permanent? Emma spent days in contemplation, fear and excitement warring within her. She knew she had to tell him, that keeping this secret was impossible. Alexander had a way of finding out things, nothing in his world stayed hidden for long, but telling him directly was terrifying. She remembered the man she had first met, commanding, dangerous, and utterly unpredictable. How would he handle news that could change everything in his carefully controlled life? Finally, she decided she couldn't wait any longer. She called him, her hands shaking as she dialed his number. To her surprise, he answered immediately, his voice calm but carrying that unmistakable edge of authority. Emma, he said, as though he already knew something had changed. Alexander, I need to tell you something, she stammered, her voice quivering. It's about us. He paused, a silence stretching between them that felt almost unbearable. Go on, he said finally, and his tone was unreadable, dangerous in its calmness. Emma took a deep breath. I'm pregnant, she confessed, her heart pounding in her chest. The line was silent for a moment, and in that silence, Emma's mind raced with possibilities, fears, and worst-case scenarios. Then Alexander's voice returned, low and controlled, but with an intensity that made her shiver. Pregnant, he repeated. You're carrying my child. Yes, she whispered, tears threatening to fall. I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did. There was another pause, longer this time, and Emma feared the worst. But when he finally spoke, there was a new edge to his voice, one that mixed possession, determination, and something she hadn't expected, a hint of vulnerability. You'll never be alone in this, he said. I'll handle this. I'll handle you. And our child. Emma's breath caught. She hadn't expected that. Despite the danger, the secrecy, and the forbidden nature of their relationship, Alexander's words carried a promise that nothing, not even the risks and enemies surrounding him, would keep him from claiming what was his. As she hung up the phone, a mixture of relief, fear, and anticipation washed over her. Her life had changed forever, and so had Alexander's. The forbidden night that had seemed like a fleeting, dangerous thrill was now something far more profound, a bond neither of them could ignore. And as the city moved on beneath her window, Emma knew that the coming months would test both of them in ways they could never have anticipated. But for the first time, she felt a strange certainty, whatever challenges lay ahead, she would not face them alone. Emma couldn't sleep that night. Her mind was a storm of emotions, fear, excitement, anticipation, and a strange thrill she hadn't expected. Being pregnant with Alexander's child was terrifying, yes, but it also made the connection between them feel undeniable. She replayed the conversation over and over in her mind, his low, commanding voice promising that he would handle everything. It was both comforting and unsettling, comforting because she felt protected, unsettling because she knew Alexander's world was far from ordinary. The next morning, Emma decided to confide in her closest friend, Sarah. They met at a quiet cafe in the city, away from the chaos of their lives. Sarah's eyes widened the moment Emma dropped the news. You're pregnant with him? She asked, her voice a mixture of shock and disbelief. Emma nodded, feeling the weight of her secret pressing down on her. I know it sounds insane, Sarah. But it's true. And I don't know what to do. I'm scared, but there's also something else. Something I can't explain. Sarah reached across the table and grabbed her hand. Emma, listen to me. You have to be careful. Alexander Moretti is not like anyone you've ever met. He's dangerous. But if he truly said he'll be there for you, then maybe it's real. Just don't let your guard down completely. Emma nodded, appreciating the concern, but deep down, she knew she didn't want to be guarded anymore. Not with him. There was a part of her that craved the intensity, the danger, the forbidden thrill of being with Alexander. And now, the pregnancy made everything feel more permanent, more real, and somehow more intimate. Over the next few days, Alexander's presence became even more intense. He appeared unannounced at her apartment, at her work, and even in places she hadn't expected him. Every time he showed up, he exuded the same mix of danger and allure that had drawn her to him in the first place. Emma tried to act normal, but it was impossible. Every glance, every touch, every word from him made her heart race. One evening, he appeared at her apartment just as the sun was setting, the city skyline glowing behind him. He didn't knock, he didn't need to. Emma opened the door to see him standing there, his eyes dark and unreadable. We need to talk, he said simply, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Emma closed the door behind him, feeling a shiver run down her spine. About? She asked, trying to sound casual, though her voice betrayed her nervousness. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked over to the window and looked out at the city below. About us, he said finally, his voice low and measured. And what comes next? I don't do things halfway, Emma. I never have. And I won't start now. Emma felt her pulse quicken. She knew what he meant. He was talking about the pregnancy, about the child they were going to bring into the world. I don't know if I'm ready for all of this, she admitted, her voice trembling. I didn't plan any of this. It's happening so fast. Alexander turned to her, his gaze piercing, intense, yet strangely tender. You don't have to plan it, Emma. You just have to be honest, with yourself and with me. This child, this life we've created, it's real. And it's ours. We'll face it together. His words, though commanding, carried a vulnerability that surprised her. For the first time, she saw a side of him that few ever did, a man capable of love, loyalty, and protection. It made her heart ache with a mixture of longing and fear. Over the following weeks, their secret meetings continued, but now with a new layer of intimacy. Alexander was protective, watching over her in ways both subtle and overt. He arranged for her to have the best medical care, the safest environments, and even discreet security when necessary. Emma was both overwhelmed and touched by his efforts, realizing that beneath his ruthless exterior, he was fiercely committed to her and their child. But Alexander's world was never without danger. Rival gangs, internal power struggles, and law enforcement threats loomed constantly. Emma learned quickly that being connected to him meant navigating a life filled with risk. She witnessed moments of violence and tension that left her breathless and terrified, yet she also saw Alexander's unwavering focus on her safety. He was ruthless with his enemies, yes, but tender and careful with her, a duality that both frightened and fascinated her. One rainy afternoon, while they were hiding out in a secluded penthouse, Emma felt the first real kick of their unborn child. She gasped, clutching her stomach, and Alexander's eyes softened as he reached for her hand. Do you feel that? He asked, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Emma nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. It's incredible. I can't believe it's real. It's real, he repeated, his voice low but firm. And we'll protect it. No one will hurt you or our child. I swear it. In that moment, Emma felt a sense of safety she hadn't known she could feel around him. Despite the danger, despite the secrets, despite the forbidden nature of their relationship, she realized that she trusted him. And that trust, once given, changed everything. Yet, as the days passed, the reality of their situation began to press down on her. She had to continue her work, maintain appearances, and navigate a city that would never understand the life she was leading. She couldn't show the vulnerability she felt, couldn't let anyone see the depth of her connection to a man like Alexander. It was a delicate balance, one that required constant vigilance. Alexander, too, faced his own struggles. He had enemies who sought to exploit any weakness, who would stop at nothing to undermine his empire. And now, with a child on the way, he knew that his personal and professional worlds were colliding in ways he hadn't anticipated. But he also knew something else, that he would do whatever it took to protect Emma and their child, even if it meant risking everything he had built. The tension between them grew, not in their affection, but in the constant push and pull of danger and desire. Every moment together was precious, stolen, and fleeting. Yet, each moment strengthened the bond between them, creating a connection that neither could ignore. Emma knew that the coming months would test them, challenge them, and push them to the edge. But she also knew that their forbidden love, and the child growing inside her, was worth every risk. And so, as the city outside carried on unaware of the storm brewing in their lives, Emma and Alexander faced the unknown together. Their nights were filled with whispered promises, stolen glances, and the knowledge that whatever the world threw at them, they were no longer just two individuals, they were a family in the making, bound by secrets, desire, and an unbreakable connection. The weeks passed, and Emma began to feel the first undeniable changes of pregnancy. Her body shifted, and with it came a new sense of vulnerability, yet also a growing connection to the life she carried. She found herself daydreaming about the future, something she hadn't dared to do before with Alexander. Each thought was tangled with both excitement and fear. Their secret nights together had turned into a pattern of intimacy and tension, a dance that neither could resist but that the world outside would never approve of. Alexander became increasingly protective, his presence unavoidable and yet comforting. He insisted on accompanying her to medical appointments, carefully screening every aspect of her environment. Emma had grown used to seeing his world up close, the luxurious penthouses, the high-stakes meetings, and the constant undertone of danger that followed him everywhere. She was aware of his enemies, the threats that hovered like shadows, and even though it scared her, she also admired his unwavering control over chaos. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, painting the city in hues of orange and gold, Alexander appeared at her apartment unannounced. He didn't knock, he never did. Emma opened the door to find him standing there, hands in his pockets, his gaze intense yet strangely soft. "I've been thinking," he said, stepping inside, his voice low and deliberate. "About our future. About you. About the baby." Emma's heart raced. She hadn't expected him to bring up the future so soon. "Alexander, we can't," she started, but he silenced her with a raised hand. "You don't get to. Can't. Me," he said with a rare, almost playful smile. "I don't negotiate feelings or family. This is happening, Emma, whether you're ready or not. And I'll make sure it's safe, no matter what it takes." The firmness in his voice left her breathless. He was commanding, dangerous, and yet undeniably tender when it came to her. Emma realized, more clearly than ever, that Alexander was not just her lover, he was a force in her life she couldn't ignore, one whose decisions shaped the very world around her. Over the following days, their secret life became even more complicated. Emma had to maintain her professional image, attend events, and meet deadlines, all while managing the growing weight of her pregnancy. Every missed appointment or unexplained absence risked questions she wasn't prepared to answer. And every time Alexander appeared unexpectedly, her heart fluttered between fear and anticipation. Then came the day that changed everything. Emma was walking through the streets of Manhattan when a black SUV suddenly cut her off. Two men stepped out, wearing tailored suits but carrying an unmistakable threat in their eyes. Emma froze, instinctively reaching for her phone, but before she could react, Alexander appeared as if from nowhere. His presence was commanding, his movements precise, almost predatory. Within moments, the men were pushed back, retreating under his glare and authority. "Are you okay?" he asked, his eyes scanning her face for any sign of injury or fear. Emma nodded, trembling. I'm fine. Thank you." Alexander's jaw tightened. "No one threatens my family," he said quietly, and the intensity in his tone sent a chill down her spine. Emma realized that she was no longer just his lover, she was part of a life that demanded loyalty, vigilance, and courage. And for the first time, she understood the true weight of being involved with Alexander Moretti. That night, back in the safety of her apartment, Alexander held her close. "Emma," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face, "I need you to understand something. This child, it's everything. And so are you. If anyone tries to hurt you or our family, I'll make them regret it for the rest of their lives. Do you understand me?" Tears welled in Emma's eyes. "I understand," she whispered. She had always known he was dangerous, but she had never fully realized how far he would go to protect the ones he cared about. It was both terrifying and oddly reassuring. The following weeks were a delicate balancing act. Emma navigated the pressures of her career while Alexander intensified his protection over her. He hired discreet security, ensured her daily routes were monitored, and even arranged for personal drivers when she needed to travel. The constant vigilance reminded her of the dangers lurking in Alexander's world, but it also made her feel cherished, valued, and, strangely, loved. As her pregnancy progressed, the bond between them deepened in ways neither had anticipated. Their stolen moments were filled with tenderness, quiet laughter, and whispered promises of a future that seemed almost impossible given their circumstances. Yet in the privacy of their shared space, Alexander revealed glimpses of vulnerability rarely seen by anyone else. He spoke of his own childhood, the burden of legacy, and the rare moments of loneliness that accompanied his power. Emma listened, captivated, realizing that the man she feared and desired was also capable of profound depth and emotion. But danger was never far behind. Rival factions had caught wind of Alexander's personal involvement with her, and threats began to surface more frequently. Anonymous notes, suspicious vehicles, and shadowy figures at a distance reminded Emma that their love was forbidden not just by society, but by the harsh realities of Alexander's world. And each new threat only strengthened his resolve to protect her, drawing them closer together in ways that were as intoxicating as they were terrifying. One night, as the city slept beneath a blanket of rain, Alexander and Emma found themselves on the balcony of his penthouse, the skyline glowing with 1,000 lights. He held her hand, his gaze fixed on her growing belly. "This child," he said softly, "will know a world I never had. And I'll do everything to make sure it's a life worth living." Emma leaned against him, feeling both safe and exposed in his arms. "Alexander, I'm scared," she admitted. For the baby, for us, for everything that comes next. He kissed her forehead gently, a rare softness in his fierce demeanor. I know, he whispered. But fear isn't weakness. It's proof that you care. And we'll face it all together, no matter what comes our way. As dawn approached, Emma realized something profound. Despite the danger, the secrecy, and the forbidden nature of their relationship, she had found someone who would fight for her and their child with every fiber of his being. And in that moment, she allowed herself to imagine a future, a life with Alexander, filled with challenges, love, and undeniable passion. The city below remained oblivious to the lives unfolding in that penthouse, to the secrets, the danger, and the forbidden love that defined their existence. But Emma and Alexander knew the truth. Their bond was unbreakable, their connection undeniable, and their future, though uncertain, was theirs to claim. The following month brought a storm of challenges that neither Emma nor Alexander had fully anticipated. The pregnancy was progressing, and with it came both excitement and anxiety. Emma's days were filled with doctor visits, quiet moments of reflection, and the constant, underlying tension of keeping her relationship with Alexander a secret. She was learning to navigate a world that demanded poise and composure, all while carrying the life of their unborn child. Each kick, each small movement reminded her that this wasn't just about a forbidden night anymore, it was about creating a future, no matter how uncertain it seemed. Alexander, as always, was deeply involved. His presence was unwavering, protective, and sometimes suffocating. He insisted on personally overseeing every detail of her life, from security arrangements to her nutrition and even her daily routines. Emma appreciated his attention but occasionally felt trapped by it. His world was vast and dangerous, and she was constantly reminded that being with him meant accepting risks she could never fully predict. One evening, Alexander appeared at her apartment unannounced, his expression unreadable. Emma, he said, his voice calm but carrying that unmistakable edge of authority, we have a situation. Emma's stomach tightened. She had grown accustomed to these abrupt visits, but the gravity in his tone made her nervous. What kind of situation? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Alexander didn't answer immediately. Instead, he paced the room, his sharp gaze fixed on her as if measuring her reaction. Finally, he spoke. One of my associates has been compromised. And there's a chance that someone is watching you. Emma's heart raced. She had known that danger was part of his world, but hearing it so directly made the risk feel terrifyingly real. Watching me? Why? He stepped closer, his presence dominating the space. Because they know about us. They know about the child. And anyone who knows that, they become a target. Including you. Fear and adrenaline surged through Emma. She had always known that her connection to Alexander carried risks, but now it felt immediate, inescapable. She realized that their love, their secret, was no longer just a private thrill, it was a liability in a world filled with enemies who would stop at nothing to exploit it. Alexander's hand found hers, squeezing tightly. Emma, I need you to trust me completely. From now on, nothing is accidental. Every step you take, every place you go, I need to know. Can you do that? Emma nodded, feeling the weight of both fear and trust. I can, she whispered. She didn't fully understand what lay ahead, but she knew one thing, she would follow him, even into the storm. Over the next few days, Alexander intensified his protection. Emma found herself surrounded by discreet security personnel, carefully monitored routes, and constant communication. Every aspect of her life was under scrutiny, yet in the midst of it, she felt a strange comfort. Alexander's intensity, once overwhelming, became a shield she could lean on. But danger has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. One afternoon, while Emma was attending a high-profile event for her work, she felt a presence behind her, someone observing her closely. Her instincts screamed that something was wrong, and she quickly excused herself, retreating to a private room. Her phone buzzed immediately with a message from Alexander, "Are you safe?" Emma's hands shook as she typed back, "I think so, someone is watching me." Within minutes, he was there, as if he had anticipated the threat. His presence was immediate, commanding, and protective. He scanned the room, his dark eyes narrowing at unseen adversaries. "You're not going anywhere without me," he said, his tone brooking no argument. Emma felt a mixture of fear and admiration. She had always known that Alexander was powerful, but witnessing his protective instincts firsthand was overwhelming. It made her realize just how much of his life, and his empire, she had entered, willingly or not. That night, back in the privacy of her apartment, Alexander was unusually quiet. He held her close, speaking in hushed tones. Emma, you must understand something, he said, his voice low but firm. This world I live in, it's dangerous. There are people who would do anything to hurt me, to hurt us. You and this child are precious to me. I will not allow anyone to take that from us. Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes. I'm scared, Alexander, she admitted, her voice trembling. I didn't realize how real this danger is, how close it can get. He kissed her forehead gently, a rare softness in his fierce demeanor. Fear is natural. It shows you care. But you are not alone. I will protect you, no matter the cost. Days turned into weeks, and Emma's pregnancy advanced. She experienced moments of joy and wonder, feeling the baby move, imagining the life growing inside her, alongside the constant shadow of danger. Each day tested her courage, her trust, and her heart. Alexander remained her anchor, a constant presence in a world that seemed increasingly uncertain. One night, as rain poured over the city, Alexander and Emma found themselves in the seclusion of a luxurious penthouse. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil in their lives, the constant threat, the forbidden love, and the uncertainty of the future. Alexander held her close, whispering promises of protection and devotion. This child, he murmured, will know love. And you will never face this alone. I swear it. Emma rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Despite the fear, the secrecy, and the danger, she felt a profound sense of connection. This wasn't just a forbidden romance anymore. It was a bond forged in fire, tested by danger, and strengthened by the life they were creating together. But even in moments of intimacy and reassurance, the world outside continued to encroach. Messages from unknown numbers, suspicious activity near her apartment, and unexplained surveillance reminded Emma that their lives were never private. Each new threat only reinforced the stakes. Their love, once thrillingly forbidden, was now a matter of survival. As dawn approached, Emma realized that the coming months would test them in ways they could not yet imagine. The forbidden night that had started it all had transformed into a journey fraught with danger, desire, and responsibility. And through it all, Alexander remained unwavering, a constant force in her life, and the protector of both her heart and their unborn child. Emma knew one thing with absolute clarity: whatever storms lay ahead, they would face them together. Their love, their child, and the unbreakable connection they shared would guide them through the challenges, no matter how dangerous or uncertain the path. The tension in Emma's life was becoming unbearable. Every day brought a new reminder that her connection to Alexander was not just forbidden, it was dangerous. The city she once thought she knew had transformed into a maze of hidden threats and unseen eyes. Every shadow, every unfamiliar car, every whispered rumor in the media kept her on edge. She had grown accustomed to Alexander's constant presence, yet she couldn't shake the fear that something, or someone, could pierce the fragile bubble they had created for themselves and their unborn child. Alexander, as always, was relentless. He had doubled his security measures, personally overseeing every route she took, every interaction she had. But his control extended beyond mere protection. He wanted to be involved in every aspect of her life, ensuring she was safe, comfortable, and shielded from the world's dangers. Emma sometimes wondered if his vigilance was as much about his need for control as it was about protection. Yet, deep down, she knew his obsession came from a place of care, perhaps the only care she had ever experienced so intensely. One evening, Alexander appeared at her apartment with an unusual urgency. His suit was slightly disheveled, his eyes darker than usual. Emma, we need to move, he said abruptly. Now. Move. What do you mean? She asked, panic threading through her voice. There's a threat, he explained tersely. An old rival of mine has discovered our connection. They know about you, the child, and they're coming. We don't have time to wait. Emma's heart raced. She had no. What do we do? We leave, he said simply, and immediately. Within minutes, they were in a black SUV, speeding through the rain-soaked streets of Manhattan. Alexander's grip on her hand was firm but reassuring, a reminder that no matter the chaos outside, she was not alone. Emma could feel her fear mingling with a strange thrill, the adrenaline, the danger, and the undeniable connection between them creating a tension that was almost intoxicating. They arrived at a secluded safe house on the outskirts of the city. It was modern, secure, and utterly private, everything Alexander deemed necessary to protect her and their child. As soon as they entered, he secured the perimeter, his sharp eyes scanning every corner. Emma watched him work with awe and a hint of fear. He was ruthless, precise, and utterly commanding, a man who had spent his life controlling everything, yet here, he was vulnerable in ways only she had ever seen. Once they were inside, Alexander finally allowed himself a moment of softness. He pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. "You're safe now," he whispered. "For now, at least. But we have to be ready for whatever comes next. This is just the beginning." Emma nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and lingering fear. She had known that being with Alexander meant danger, but experiencing it firsthand made her realize just how fragile their lives were. Yet, despite the risk, she also felt an undeniable bond forming, a bond that was unbreakable, forged in fire and secrecy, and strengthened by the life growing inside her. Days passed in a tense routine. Emma adjusted to life in hiding, spending her time reading, resting, and occasionally taking brief walks under the watchful eyes of Alexander's security. He was everywhere, silent, protective, and relentless. She had grown accustomed to his presence, to the unspoken understanding that he would go to any lengths to keep her safe. And yet, the constant vigilance, the never-ending threat of discovery, weighed heavily on her. One night, as they sat together in the dim light of the safe house, Emma finally voiced a thought she had been avoiding. "Alexander, what happens after the baby is born?" she asked quietly, her hand resting on her growing belly. "Will it ever be safe for us to go back to the world we knew? Or is this our life now?" Alexander's gaze softened, but his expression remained serious. "I don't know," he admitted, a rare honesty in his voice. "The world I live in doesn't allow for normal. But I do know this, we'll face it together. And I will protect you and our child no matter what it takes." That promise, that's unbreakable. Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. She had always known Alexander was dangerous, unpredictable, and ruthless. But she had also learned that beneath that exterior was a man capable of fierce love, loyalty, and devotion. And for the first time, she realized that her life, though perilous, was intertwined with someone who would never let her face danger alone. The safe house became a temporary sanctuary, but Alexander's enemies were relentless. Intelligence reports indicated that the rival faction was closing in, and he had to take immediate action. Emma, despite her fear, insisted on helping in whatever way she could. She realized that being part of his world meant taking risks, yet she also knew that her courage, her love, and her intuition could make a difference. One evening, Alexander revealed a plan. "We need to strike before they do," he said, his eyes dark and calculating. "I'll handle the men, but I need you to stay safe, Emma. No exceptions. Promise me." Emma nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. "I promise," she whispered, though a part of her ached to be by his side, to face the danger alongside him. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation, strategy, and tension. Alexander moved like a shadow, orchestrating every detail with precision. Emma watched in awe as he navigated the treacherous world he had built, a world of loyalty, betrayal, and power. And through it all, she felt a growing admiration, love, and connection to the man who had captured her heart so completely. Finally, the confrontation came. Alexander's forces clashed with the rival faction in a calculated strike, precise and ruthless. Emma stayed in the safe house, her heart pounding as she waited, praying for his return. Hours felt like days, and every sound outside made her flinch. But when Alexander returned, unscathed yet exhausted, she ran into his arms, relief and love flooding through her. "I'm here," he murmured, holding her tightly. "Nothing will harm us. I promise." Emma clung to him, feeling the life growing inside her as a new layer of determination and courage took root. She realized that whatever challenges lay ahead, danger, secrecy, or the trials of the outside world, they would face them together. Their love, once forbidden, had become unbreakable, forged in the fires of risk and trust, and now strengthened by the promise of new life. As dawn broke over the city, Emma and Alexander sat together, holding hands, their hearts synchronized in a rhythm of love, fear, and unspoken understanding. The world outside remained unaware of the battles fought in shadowed corners, the dangers they had faced, and the forbidden love that had become the center of both their lives. But inside that safe house, they knew the truth. They were bound by destiny, desire, and the promise of a future that, though uncertain, was theirs to claim. And as Emma rested her head against Alexander's chest, she felt a profound certainty. No matter what storms lay ahead, no matter the threats or the challenges, they would face them together. Their love was more than passion, it was survival, protection, and the promise of a family that could not be broken. The weeks that followed were tense yet intimate, a delicate balance between fear, love, and the anticipation of the life growing inside Emma. Each day brought a new challenge, hidden threats, whispered rumors, and the constant pressure of secrecy. Alexander's vigilance never wavered, and Emma began to understand just how consuming his world could be. It wasn't just the power, the danger, or the empire, it was the constant responsibility of keeping his loved ones safe. And now, with a child on the way, that responsibility was more personal, more urgent than ever. Emma had grown accustomed to the rhythm of their secret life. Days were spent in preparation, rest, and careful planning, nights were reserved for stolen moments of intimacy and whispered confessions. She marveled at the duality of Alexander, the ruthless, commanding Mafia king who could eliminate enemies with a single order, and the tender, protective man who held her close when the world became too much to bear. It was a contradiction she had never imagined, yet it was this duality that made her heart ache with longing and devotion. One evening, as the city lights shimmered through her apartment window, Alexander appeared unexpectedly, his expression unusually grave. "Emma, we need to talk," he said, his voice low but urgent. "There's something you must know about the people we're dealing with, and the stakes are higher than ever." Emma's stomach tightened. She had grown used to sudden warnings, but the tone in his voice made her uneasy. "What is it?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "There's someone from my past," he explained, pacing the room. "A man I thought I had neutralized years ago. But he's resurfaced, and he knows about you and the baby. We need to be extremely careful from now on. Every move must be calculated. One mistake could cost us everything." Emma's pulse quickened. She had known danger was part of his world, but hearing it so directly made the risks feel immediate and terrifying. "Alexander, what do? We stay hidden, we stay vigilant, and we trust no one," he said firmly. "And above all, I need you to trust me. You will follow my instructions, no questions asked. Can you do that?" Emma nodded, swallowing her fear. "I trust you," she whispered. She had learned that his commands were not just orders, they were promises of protection, a shield against the dangers that lurked in every corner of his world. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation. Alexander secured a new, undisclosed location for them, reinforced with security measures so advanced that Emma could barely comprehend them. She felt both safe and trapped, knowing that the world outside was becoming increasingly hostile and that their lives were now governed by surveillance, secrecy, and strategy. Every detail of her existence, from the food she ate to the people she interacted with, was carefully monitored, all to ensure that neither she nor the unborn child faced harm. Despite the tension, their moments together were filled with a deep, undeniable intimacy. Alexander was attentive in ways that transcended physical desire. He whispered reassurances, stroked her hair, and spoke to her about the future. "Our child," he said one night, holding her close, "will know love, security, and strength. And you are my world, Emma. I will never let anything happen to you." Emma's heart swelled with emotion. She had come to realize that their connection was more than passion, it was survival, trust, and a bond forged in fire. Each gesture, each word, each glance from Alexander reminded her that their love, though forbidden, had transformed into something unbreakable, something that could withstand even the fiercest storms. Yet, danger was never far behind. One afternoon, while Emma was resting in their safe house, she noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere, an unfamiliar shadow outside a window, the faint sound of a car engine that didn't belong. Her heart raced, and she instinctively reached for her phone, but before she could dial, Alexander appeared behind her, his presence sudden and commanding. "You feel it too?" he asked quietly, his eyes scanning the perimeter. Emma nodded, her hands trembling. "Yes. Someone is here." He moved with precision, checking every corner, every exit. "We've been compromised," he muttered, his jaw tightening. "I need you to stay here. Do not leave this room until I return." "Understand. I understand," she whispered, though a part of her ached to be by his side, to face the threat with him. Minutes stretched into hours, each tick of the clock amplifying Emma's anxiety. She felt the weight of her vulnerability more acutely than ever, aware that her life, and the life within her, depended entirely on Alexander's decisions. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he returned. His expression was calm, but there was a fire in his eyes that spoke volumes. They tried to get close, he explained, his voice low but controlled. But no one touches my family. Not now, not ever. You and our child are safe. For now. Emma exhaled shakily, relief mingling with lingering fear. She clung to him, feeling both the weight of their reality and the depth of their connection. I'm so scared, Alexander, she admitted, tears welling in her eyes. I never imagined it would be like this. He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. Fear is part of life, Emma. But love is what makes it worth surviving. And you are my love. Always. The coming weeks were a mixture of tension, planning, and moments of quiet intimacy. Emma adjusted to the rhythm of hiding, trusting Alexander to navigate the dangers that lurked just beyond their walls. She learned to read the subtle signs of threat, to understand the nuances of his world, and to accept that their love, while forbidden, was worth every risk. One night, as the city slept beneath a blanket of darkness, Alexander and Emma stood together on the balcony of their safe house, the skyline stretching endlessly before them. Do you ever wonder, Emma asked softly, if we'll ever have a normal life? A life without danger. Alexander's gaze softened, yet there was a steely determination in his eyes. Normal isn't in our world, Emma. But happiness, that's possible. With us, with our child. We'll carve our own path. One that protects what's most important. Emma leaned against him, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat and the warmth of his embrace. She realized that their forbidden nights, their stolen moments, and the constant threats were not just obstacles, they were the threads that bound them together, creating a love that was as dangerous as it was profound. And as the first light of dawn painted the city in shades of gold, Emma understood one unshakable truth: no matter the storms, no matter the enemies, no matter the dangers that awaited, she and Alexander were inseparable. Their love, their child, and the bond they shared had become a force that no one could break. The city outside had never seemed so distant, so irrelevant, as Emma and Alexander faced the culmination of everything that had begun with that forbidden night. The weeks of hiding, the threats, the secret meetings, and the growing bond between them had all led to this moment. Emma could feel the life inside her moving with an intensity that mirrored the storm swirling in her world. She was exhausted, anxious, yet inexplicably strong, a strength drawn from love, fear, and the unwavering presence of Alexander. It was late at night when Alexander returned from a crucial meeting with his inner circle. His expression was unreadable, his sharp eyes scanning the room before they rested on Emma. We're at a turning point, he said quietly, though there was an edge in his voice that made her heart skip a beat. The threat is real, and they've been planning for this moment longer than I realized. We have to act now. Emma's pulse raced. She had grown accustomed to his calculated ruthlessness, but the weight of his words, the finality in his tone, made fear mingle with anticipation. Act. How? She asked, though she already knew that he would take the lead. Alexander stepped closer, taking her hands in his. We face them together, he said firmly. This is our life now, Emma. And nothing, no one, will take what belongs to us. The plan was simple in its precision yet deadly in execution. Alexander would confront the rival faction directly, using his power, influence, and reputation to eliminate the threat once and for all. Emma would remain hidden, shielded by the layers of security he had established, her safety the ultimate priority. She wanted to argue, to insist on being by his side, but she knew it was impossible. This was his world, and he bore the responsibility of protecting everyone he loved. Hours passed in tense anticipation. Emma stayed in the safe room, her hands resting on her belly, whispering soothing words to the child she carried. Each kick, each flutter, was a reminder of why she had to stay strong, why Alexander's determination mattered so much. She trusted him completely, as she had learned to do, but the fear that something could go wrong gnawed at her relentlessly. Finally, Alexander returned. His suit was slightly rumpled, his expression intense yet triumphant. It's done, he said simply, his voice low and steady. They won't be coming after us again. Not ever. Emma ran to him, tears streaming down her face, relief and love mingling in a way that left her breathless. She clung to him, feeling the steady beat of his heart, the warmth of his presence, and the undeniable truth that he had fought for them, and won. Alexander, you did it, she whispered, her voice trembling. He held her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. We did it, he corrected softly. Together. Always. In the days that followed, the atmosphere slowly shifted. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the reality of their lives remained complicated, dangerous, and intensely private. Emma's pregnancy progressed, and with it came a sense of anticipation that mingled with relief. She had survived the storm, endured the tension, and now had the chance to imagine a future that was not only about survival but also about love, family, and connection. Alexander, despite the recent confrontation, remained the same commanding presence, but there was a subtle change in him, a tenderness reserved solely for Emma and their child. He was meticulous, protective, and unwavering, yet softer in ways that Emma hadn't seen before. He took joy in the small moments, a gentle touch on her belly, quiet conversations about names for the baby, and the simple act of holding her hand as they walked through the safe confines of their home. One night, as they sat together overlooking the city from their penthouse balcony, Emma allowed herself to voice a thought she had kept hidden. Alexander, do you think it's possible for us to have a normal life someday? A life without hiding, without danger. Alexander's eyes softened, though the determination in them remained. Normal isn't in our world, Emma. But happiness, that's possible. With us, with our child. We'll carve a path for ourselves, no matter the risks. We'll make a life worth living, one moment at a time. Emma rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the strength in his arms, and the undeniable certainty that she was not alone. Their love, forged in secrecy and tested by danger, had transformed into a force that neither time nor circumstance could break. The final weeks of her pregnancy were filled with anticipation, preparation, and quiet intimacy. Alexander was constantly by her side, ensuring her comfort, safety, and peace of mind. They shared moments of laughter, whispered plans for the future, and the deep, unspoken understanding that they were now more than lovers, they were a family in waiting. Finally, the day came. Emma went into labor in the safety of the private medical facility Alexander had arranged. He was there, holding her hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement, and ensuring that she felt supported and loved. Hours of pain and intensity culminated in the arrival of a healthy baby, a child born into a world of danger but also one filled with love, protection, and the unbreakable bond of a mother and father who would stop at nothing to keep them safe. As Emma held their child for the first time, tears of relief and joy streamed down her face. Alexander stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder, his eyes glistening with a rare vulnerability. "Our family," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "We made it." Emma smiled, feeling the weight of the journey behind them and the promise of the future ahead. "We did," she replied softly. She looked up at him, seeing not just the powerful, commanding man who had captured her heart, but the father who would protect their child fiercely, the partner who had shared every fear and every triumph, the love of her life. The city outside continued its relentless pace, oblivious to the battles fought, the threats neutralized, and the life-altering love story that had unfolded in shadowed corners, penthouses, and safe houses. But within the walls of their private world, Emma and Alexander had discovered something timeless and enduring, a love that had survived danger, secrecy, and fear, now strengthened by the miracle of new life and the promise of a future together. As dawn broke over the skyline, Alexander held Emma close, their child nestled safely between them. "We've been through hell to get here," he murmured, "but I wouldn't trade a single moment. You and this child, you're my world." Emma rested her head on his chest, feeling the warmth, the strength, and the unshakable love radiating from him. She knew that life would still be complicated, that challenges would come, and that their world would never be ordinary. But she also knew that together, they could face anything. Their forbidden night had sparked a love that was now unbreakable, and their child was the living proof that even in the most dangerous, unpredictable worlds, love could triumph, endure, and transform lives forever.